In this video, I'm going to show you everything that you need to do in the whitetail woods for the month of July, so that way you'll follow all the steps to make sure that you have a great hunt this season. So the month of July is a really big month for whitetail habitat, and it is just really important because it's the middle of summer. There's a lot of things going on, especially in the whitetail woods, and so I'm just going to go through everything that we need to be doing to make sure that we have a great hunt this season. And so starting off, we're right here in a really good setup. This is the Mockscrape, the water hole back here. We got a trail camera up here. Need to switch the cards out, but I had some nice bucks on there. Checking out the water hole. First pictures at the water hole were two really nice bucks. I need to readjust the camera so I can get the looking branch in it too. But we had some really good buck pictures. But for the month of July, there's a lot of things that can go wrong for this season, and then there's a lot of things that you can do to make sure that nothing goes wrong. So starting off with number one is summer bucks. And so if you have summer bucks, that is not a good thing unless they are occasionally on your property, not consistently on your property. So like the bucks that we had here, I see them about every other week, I would say, but there's three main bucks that are staying on my property, and you might have some bucks that are staying on your property. You might, right where I live, it's really, this property, it's a lot different. Most summer bedding, and for example, summer bedding and fall bedding, the way this property is lined up, their summer bedding is the same as their fall bedding. In a lot of other states and a lot of other properties, that's a lot different because of how the property is laid out. But how the property lays out in this, they have to use the same summer bedding and fall bedding. So that's another thing you can do in the month of July, is just kind of figuring out how the deer use your property during the summer versus the fall. And so that'll really help you to decide where to put tree stands at this season as well. But putting licking branches out right now is a really good thing to do. Putting water holes out. You can put out some late water holes. You're just going to have to fill that up yourself. The rainwater is not really going to help you because this is really one of the driest times during the year. But making sure you don't have summer bucks is really important, and making sure that you're doing all the steps, taking out summer food, only planting it during the fall. It's crazy to think that we're going to be planting food plots next month and that's already coming, but making sure that you're not having those summer bucks is really important for this time period, so that way you'll be able to shoot them during the fall. You might have a couple that are consistently staying on your property. I've had maybe one or two, but I had a bunch of different bucks come on my property during the fall, and I only had a couple stay on my property during the summer. And expect for those bucks to leave if they are consistently using your property, but also expect for more bucks, maybe even bigger bucks, to come during the fall. So number one is making sure that you're not having too many summer bucks. Number two is these licking branches. And so I'm not going to touch them down here because that's where they're going to use them. Really, this portion down is where they're using it. So this is a really good licking branch. Already had some use in here. We have another licking branch in the food plot that I set up. There's a couple little bucks that have been using that, a couple does. So that was really, it's just really neat to see and watch how the deer use these licking branches and these scrapes. But they're not going to paw at the ground. You might not be able to see it because of these weeds right here, but they're not really going to paw at the ground right here as much during the summertime. Really once those cruising trails heat up, and once those the rut comes and bucks are trying to establish dominance, that's when they're really going to be using these scrapes part right here, because that's just showing all the other bucks in the neighborhood that there is a buck here and he is dominant over this property or his core area. And so you can make these yourselves. If you have already existing buck scrapes that you didn't even make, you can even cut those down, because you don't want the deer to be using that's not by your stand or by a stand location, so they're going to avoid this one. So if you need to cut down a natural one over here where there's not a stand, because you have one right here that's next to my tree stand, then cut that down, so that way they use this as the line of movement. And so licking branches, number 2, licking branches are really good to put up. Number 3 is water holes. You can really do it throughout the year wherever you want. You're just going to have to fill it up with water instead of that rainwater, expecting that rainwater to fill it up. I filled the water hole up, I think, in May or June, and it is still halfway full. I filled it up halfway, but it's still halfway full, and hopefully by the end of the season we'll have some more. But it's really nice to see how well that the water is staying in there, and how it's not evaporating super quickly either. So there's still a good amount of water in there that hasn't evaporated and that the deer are still using. So that's number 3. And then number 4 is trail cameras. And so came down here to do a video, pulled the cards last night, had some nice bucks on them, and then we're putting them back in, waiting another 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even a month before we check them again. You don't need to consistently check the summer trail cameras, but that's another thing. Summer trail camera maintenance, just maintaining your cameras, but also keeping an inventory on your summer bucks. And so I'm keeping a bunch of inventory on all the bucks that I'm seeing and where their travel is and what I've been seeing. Even not even trail camera sightings, but even just going out and scouting in person and seeing deer. I record everything, all the deer that I see, where they're at, what time of day they're at. And so I actually just saw a doe last night. They just harvested all this wheat, and I saw a doe last night feeding out in the wheat field, and so I marked that down. So every deer that I see, and depending on the number of them, so I'll say there's 4 does in this corner of the field, there was one doe in this corner of the field, there's a buck over here in this bedding area. Keeping that inventory of all those bucks, all those deer, is really good to do during the summer months and in the fall, especially from your tree stand. And so that's a good transition into our next point, and that is tree stand maintenance. And so not necessarily your actual tree stands, but where you're going to be putting up your tree stands. Tree stand access, spraying it with, I spray my tree stands, or my access for my tree stands, with glyphosate. I kill it off so that way I can have a nice, soft, quiet entrance into my tree stand. It's not a very long walk from the outside of the woods to the inside. And then I might come back and weed eat this if it needs it, but it's still looking pretty dead. There's nothing really growing up in it. And so just making sure that our access trails are good. And this is one of the most important things to do in the month of July, because we're going to be putting up tree stands next month. And it's crazy to think that that's already here. Food plots and tree stands are next month. But I'll talk about that in the next whitetail checklist. But access trails, and then even your tree stand, your tree itself, making sure that they're not broken. If you need to cut some limbs down to fit the tree stand, if you need to add some more screenings while you're up in the tree. Just like we had a really good setup right here, the water hole, licking branch, trail camera, everything was set up perfectly. And then we had a big storm, this was probably 3 weeks ago, and I guess the inside of my tree that I was going to that I had my hang-on stand on last year, actually, I was going to put it back in the same spot this year, but it actually split in half. So I'm going to have to, that's going to be a lot of work trying to get that out of here and putting up a new tree stand. So that's what I'm going to be working on a lot this month, is trying to get a tree stand to be able to fit in this spot. And this is a really tight spot for a tree, because that was really the main tree that I could have used. So I'm going to have to find a new spot. So identifying tree stand locations is a really good thing to do right now as well. Everything to do with tree stands besides actually putting the tree stand up itself, which we'll be doing in a month, that's something great to do right now. Access trails, trimming, taking down limbs, anything that you need to do to fit a tree stand into your tree this season. That's a really great thing to do in the month of July too. And then also we can do switchgrass mowing. Number 6 is switchgrass mowing. And so there's not too many weeds in my switchgrass from here. So I'm probably gonna, I don't have that many weeds in my switchgrass because I broadcasted really heavily on all of my screening spots. So probably not even gonna mow this year. I might not even have to mow next year. I might just let the whole thing come up and see how it does. The 2-year-old switchgrass over here is doing really good. There's a couple weeds mixed in, but by next year those will all be gone because it'll grow up and then those weeds will die during the winter, but that switchgrass still stays up, and then the switchgrass will just outcompete those weeds, shade out those weeds by next year. So that doesn't need mowed. This doesn't need mowed probably. If it does, I'll probably do it in the next couple of weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, if it really needs it. But for right now, looking at it, it doesn't need it right now. So that's kind of checked off the list, but you might need to do some switchgrass mowing for your screenings, bedding areas, any of that. This is a great month to do it. Last month was a great month to do it too as well, if you did do it last month. So just checking on your plants. I know I got trees from Coldstream Farms. My switchgrass, just keeping up with those, making sure that they're getting enough water, bringing a water tank down on your 4-wheeler, side-by-side tractor, whatever you need to water those plants. Not necessarily the switchgrass, but those trees that you might have planted. That's a really great thing to do as well in the month of July. So I hope that helps you getting food plots ready. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do this month, and so I'm excited to see what we can do this month to this property and to see what all this month has in store for us. And so just making sure that we're getting all of this checked off the box before the next month, especially this tree stand right here is going to be my main focus, is to make sure I can put a tree stand up in here somewhere. So probably going to look around a little bit after this, but I hope that you're able to do these things and that you're going to have a great hunt this season by doing it. And if you do these things, then you're going to not only attract mature bucks during the fall, but you're going to have a great hunt because you did it in the summer. So all this work really pays off once hunting season comes.